to a brand new edition of Young Gun, Carolina Panthers podcast about Bryce Young. I'm Demetri, a Bama grad. She is Lauren Brownlow, the biggest Panthers fan I know, and we are following the team with a microscope on its new franchise quarterback. As you can see, we are not in the OG Media studios this week. I am down in Alabama. Lauren is at her home in North Carolina. Before we jump in with everything, Lauren, I am honestly surprised because I got to Alabama yesterday. There is just it's almost like down here, Bryce has just completely left their minds. He's not here anymore, so it does not matter.
Is that surprising to you, though? Like, that's a college town.
Yeah, a little bit, because there was so much fervor around this is not Tua's fault a few years ago. I would have thought for sure Bryce would be getting the same benefit of the doubt.
I think some of this is because Bama people were very anxious about the fact that their quarterback success had not been the best in the pro level. And so I think now that you've seen some more of that start to happen, people are a little less insecure about it. So Bryce becomes a little more of an afterthought. That's just my theory on it.
No, I mean, it's very possible. Look, I'll tell you about graffiti a little bit later on the show. I'm going to start by telling you about the midweek talk through episode because it goes to exactly what you're talking about. Paul Feinbaum is going to be my guest on the midweek talk through this week because of the novelty of two Bama quarterbacks playing each other in the pros, something that hasn't happened since the 70s, mid 70s.
Wow.
And I told you watching this game, like my heart sank watching these two embrace before the game, Tua and Bryce Young. It's not an insignificant thing for people down here. That is something that a lot of people I talk to at, I just stopped for dinner at a, basic fast food kind of place and started conversations with folks. And they watched yesterday, even if they weren't invested in Bryce, they watched yesterday for that significance.
Yeah, and also, I guess you said, Bryce is like an afterthought. Let's be real. Bama people are used to doing what? Winning, right?
Yeah.
What's Bryce been doing? Not his fault. I'm not a QB win subscriber. Sorry, Brock Purdy. Not his fault, but, they ain't winning. So Bama fans are probably like, yeah, I'll be back with you when things get a little bit better. I'm just gonna...
Well, let's start with the question we ask each and every week. Was Bryce too short this week? And Lord, based on his play, I don't know how there's any answer other than no.
I never really noticed that being a thing. I don't even really recall the announcers getting on it very much, which is maybe the fewest times I've heard it mentioned, even to dispel it. Yeah. I feel like it was not really talked about, which was refreshing as well.
Do you think that is a CBS versus Fox kind of thing? Because this is only the second game they played on CBS all year. I
feel like the first one wasn't the first one the Seattle game though, and I feel like there was a lot. Yes. There was a lot of that in that game. So I don't know if it's that. I think it was just the way the game was playing. I mean, I think it helps when you play well at the start of the game and give them other things to talk about. It does kind of help because then they start going to some of your talking points, especially if you're struggling. And what's going to come first? The height thing.
The height, right. So I did send you a picture as I sat down to watch the game in my hotel room of Bryce's chin being far too little for the protector on his chin strap. It's the first time I've ever seen a close-up of him like that. And I did think we could get some joy out of that together.
I mean, to be fair, they don't always make those things to fit. I mean, poor Peyton Manning was in a helmet that didn't fit him for years. I always felt so badly for his forehead every time he would take his helmet off.
Was there ever a thought on your part with Peyton specifically because of the reason his helmet didn't fit? Did you ever look at him and think like I did I wonder if that's supposed to be shaping his head at all? I wonder if this is on purpose to sort of squish things in a bit.
Like a baby, like a toddler helmet or like a baby helmet to shape their soft skull. No. I did think it's weird. I don't feel like he has an enormous head when I look at him, but clearly it's enormous because these things do not fit him. And it's uncomfortable to watch. But yeah. So clearly they don't make them to fit everyone.
All right, let's talk about the big news. I mean, it is Bryce related. It is not about Bryce specifically, but that is that FrankReich is giving up play call duties. And you and I exchanged text during the game that it was really hard not to think about what the first year would look like if Bryce Young had a more creative, more aggressive play caller bringing him along. I'm not saying that it is because they played Miami and Miami was doing all of this very interesting backfield motion to create opportunities for Tua Tagovailoa, but the timing doesn't seem insignificant to me.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely a few plays that they ran that I'm like, man, that little like dollar store Pete Davidson over there really knows what he's doing. Jerk. No, I mean, I'm joking, of course. But yeah, no, they do things offensively that you're like, wow. And a lot of other teams will do that. And it's almost kind of like, cool. I wasn't even like, I'm usually very annoyed watching these games because I grew up a Dolphins fan, actually. There were no Carolina Panthers when I was a kid. My dad's from Florida. He was a Dolphins fan. He still cares for the Dolphins some, but not as much as he used to. For me, I've kind of, I know it's out of my system at this point because when they play, I know who I end up rooting for always. But it was still like one of the first times they played in a while that I haven't been actively annoyed at the Dolphins the entire time. So that was progress for me. It's progress.
So let's talk about the change in play callers. I mean, to me, this feels like it's about time. Although at the same time, there is a part of me that kind of wonders, is the change in play callers, is this more of Dave Tepper wanting someone calling the plays that will listen when he says we should do X, Y, or Z?
It's weird, right? Because obviously the first 5 games were abysmal from a play calling perspective. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. However, I mean, and we've texted about this a bunch, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but I was pretty okay with the play calling yesterday. I thought we saw a lot of like new and different and interesting things. So like to see that today, and I know that they petered out offensively by the end of the game, but I think that there were a lot of factors that like led into that were not just play calling. I mean, at a certain point when you're up 20 or so, you can really tee off on a quarterback, which Miami did, and the Panthers couldn't do much and whatever. But like for a lot of the game, like they had some drives and they were able to move the ball, and I thought they showed more offensively. It showed to me more that they did have a plan and they were capable of being at least somewhat dynamic and putting Bryce in better positions to be successful. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it almost like made me feel less confident to hear that they'd like made that move after that game. Like if you said you made it after the game before, I'm with you, but I didn't. I'm like, wait, but they finally like showed something offensively and now you do that. So sometimes it just feels like maybe they're just making moves to make them. And maybe it is a Tepper thing if he's saying like, well, we lost again, and so we have to do something because people are getting mad. Like yet again, not understanding why people were actually getting mad. It's because you were not putting a competent football product on the field. And this was the first time we've seen anything remotely resembling like football competence over like more than a 2 or 3 play period from the team.
So before I say this, I want to make it clear. I didn't watch the Pat McAfee show on Monday when we were recording this. So if he said more than this, I don't know. I just saw a clip on social media. You know, Pat played for the Colts and remains close with the Colts organization. And he said that he looked at Reich after games as a guy that sort of looks fed up. Like he said, you know, he's got no information. But this, yeah, I mean, he said this looks like a guy that is realizing he should have taken a year off. And he wonders if the change in play calling is about, hey, this is as close to a year off as I can get at this point, is to make someone else Dave Tepper's problem.
Yeah, and you know, you always wonder, I think, at least to an extent, and this is always the biggest concern when your head coach calls your plays, like, what do you lose from a game management perspective when that's happening? Like, what are you sacrificing? Do you have a feel of the whole game? Like, are you helping make the best decisions for your team at any given moment? And like, I did feel like Reich did a better job of that yesterday too, honestly, like of situational awareness. I mean, listen, y'all, I'm not sitting here trying to act like he called some masterful game that they'll put in the annals of football history. That's not what I'm saying. But y'all understand our bar was in hell. Like it was in hell. It was below hell.
Like the fact that our coach is not afraid of our quarterback anymore is progress.
The fact that the coach no longer seems to be actively sabotaging the offense, progress.
Progress. And
we're not Brian Ferencing it up here in Carolina anymore. Signs of hope.
Yeah, like, you know, the one thing, though, this does give me some pause on, even though I am all for whatever changes things up and makes things better for, not just for Bryce, but for the offense and for the team in general. Because if I have to watch this team, Jesus Christ, I can't keep watching this version of this team. I do worry if we both think that like 2-3 wins are kind of what we're looking at this season. I do worry that if Frank and the whole staff is hustled out of there next year, can can a guy with as much climbing as Bryce has to do, can he handle 3 play callers in that short amount of time if that's what it comes to?
I think probably, because I think if they make that move, hopefully, and you never know because of who will be making it, hopefully the long-term payoff is the best for him anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to just go ahead and declare FrankReich back to being some like offensive mind after just one game where they weren't that great offensively. But like, I think what's giving me a little pause too is this feels like results-based decision making, right?
For sure.
I mean, what did you think they were going to beat the Dolphins?
Right. Right.
So like, what if you didn't think they were going to beat the Dolphins? Was there like a better scenario you were envisioning here to not have made? Like, that's what I don't get, right? It's like, why is that when you make this move, like when they actually play well? It's almost like because they lost or like because they still lost by a lot, they want to make the move. And that's what's concerning for me, because what I want to see out of this team, and I think what most of us do, is like literally just progress. That's why yesterday people were all like losing their minds. It wasn't because like everyone's happy that they lost again, but we all understand what this team is. It's bad. The team is bad. It's not going to win many football games. What you want to see is your quarterback getting better, your offense getting better, the coaches getting better. You want to see some progress towards something that's not awful, right? Yeah. That's all you want to see. And what I worry about is the fact that maybe they're not going to win many games. I think that they will win some games. Like the NFL is there are a lot of bad football teams in the NFL. There really are. I think that they will somehow find a way to beat one of them or two of them, maybe three of them at some point. But I still, it is obviously one of those things where you're going to have to see progress in ways that are not wins and losses. Like, I think everyone has to understand that, including the owner. Now, trusting him to understand anything is maybe a tall order. However, like, that's what is a little concerning, I guess, to me, maybe about making that move, is because like, why make it like, why, if you're going to make it now, why didn't you make it last week? Because like they were always going to lose to the Dolphins. Why are you giving them if you move the football up and down the field against the Dolphins, we'll just leave things as they are. Like, that doesn't make sense to me either. So I don't know.
As always, the show is brought to you by the folks at Graffiti in downtown Cary. Yes, it's got high-end cocktails and cool art on the walls, but it's also a great place to watch football every Sunday. 19 TVs, weekly prizes given away by their beer sponsor, 158 East Cedar Street in downtown Cary. Graffiti is also doing specials on bourbon pours throughout the games on Sundays. Blanton's, $10. Eagle Rare, Angel's Envy, both of those $9. McKenna 10-year, Heaven Hill 7-year, and Buffalo Trace, all $8 pours. Graffiti is a very different football watching experience, and it's one that you should make time to have, if for only because they are the reason we get to keep doing Young Gun each and every week.
Yes, and also it's a very cool place to be.
It is a very cool place to be. Lauren Brownlow, a not very cool place to be, Johnny Hecker's forehead.
Dude. The mix of emotions I had in that moment when he headbutted that dude, I mean, it was a wild experience.
Listen, Kevin Harlan, for as goofy as he got at the end of that, he was dead on about, like, it's hard to rack your brain and think about a roughing call or an unnecessary roughness call against a punter or kicker ever in the NFL.
So, right, exactly. I get that. Although, listen, man, punters have become kind of jacked in recent years, like some of them. And Hector's like not a little dude. I mean, he's not a huge dude necessarily, especially compared to the guy that, acted like he'd been shot. That was fun. Yeah, but like the moment, like I was mad, even though like the game's out of reach though. So that made me a little less mad. So like I'm mad. I'm amused incredibly. I'm impressed. Like, because he didn't hesitate. He was fine with getting some of that action,
Oh, for sure.
He didn't even ask for backup. He's just going right in. And then also, like, extreme, like, both disgust and amusement at the flop itself. Like, I'm sitting there like friend of our podcast and my friend Kanata Edwards tweeted they should bring back shame for plays like that. We should bring back shame. Because
to Nada's point, like, as after the World Cup this summer, I have so much more respect for a great flop, because I'm not saying
art form, man.
Absolutely. I'm not saying the Spanish women only got as far as they did in the World Cup because of their flopping, but they were master actresses for just the littlest thing. And I came to forget complaining about it. It's enjoyable to me. LeBron flopping at the NBA playoffs. Mwah, more of it, please.
Yeah, it's funny when it's done well. I feel like. And well, actually, no, that's not true. Scratch that.
It's effective when it's done well. It's funniest, when what we saw on Sunday happens, for sure.
It's really funny then because you're like, and Johnny Hekker after the game was asked about it. And he was basically like he was like, I literally touched my face mask to his. And the dude did that. He's like, I don't know if he was almost impressed. He was like, I don't know if that dude practices that or what, but that was not he was still owning it. He was like, I shouldn't have done it. Obviously, I lost my cool. Yeah. He was like, no, he was like, it was not even because I think it was Scott Fowler. He's like, you headbutted him though, right? Because it looked like your face mask touched. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't really. He's like, literally, I leaned in, we touched, and he went Yeah. So that makes it almost even better because I legit thought it wasn't hard, but I thought he did actually
I thought he did too, yeah.
Or headbutt him, but he was like, no, I really didn't even do that.
I want to give you some time here to cook on your complaints about the secondary because I have very basic complaints, right? They are giving everybody the biggest cushions in the world, but you texted me yesterday and it seems because you didn't lay it all out for me, I don't know what you're going to say, but your complaints seem a little bit more specific than mine.
Well, it appeared on the Tyreek Hill touchdown that they had single coverage.
Yeah.
If they didn't have single coverage, they had a very bad job of having double coverage.
Yeah.
And Dante Jackson, I think, still has burn marks on the back of his uniform. And that's supposed to be the fast one. Remember when they were floating dudes out for trades? Oh, he runs a 4.340 or whatever. And I know he's been a little banged up or whatever, so I'm not trying to be too hard on him. Also, I get it. Is Tyreek Hill dude super fast? Fine. But at the same time, I'm like, this is the way we're going to cover this guy? I don't know, man.
And it's both of them, right? Because it's not like Jalen Waddle or even Raheem Mostert. It's not like that you get a break on any of those dudes. And there were times when Waddle would go over the middle where they would give him this huge cushion before anybody would engage. And in my head, I'm thinking, a dude like Waddle, a dude like Hill, a dude like Mostert, what is 3 steps for a lot of people, they can hurt you real bad. And it just didn't seem like there was any acknowledgement of who you were playing in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they felt like they wanted to keep something in front of them, which I kind of get. And it's hard, right? Because you can't blitz because then those guys get behind you and they're they're in one-on-one. But if you try to keep them in front of you, that's not always going to work either. I mean, I don't really know what the answer is defensively. I only know that you can't cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one with this secondary. There is no one in the secondary that can cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one, and that should not have happened at any moment in this football game, really, because no.
We do want to remind you that every Tuesday night, this show is on Origin Sports. It's one of the fast channels. Find it on Freevee, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, any of those services where you get free television. Origin Sports, we are very thankful that they invest in this show the way that they do and give us a little bit of a platform. Let's now do something that's going to make Origin very uncomfortable and describe this game plan, which I describe as the zero given game plan, because boy, it seemed like FrankReich was kind of letting it all hang out. And it's not like you said earlier.
No, let's not get crazy. I don't know.
No, this is my point. It's what you said earlier was it's not like this was a game-breaking or a groundbreaking game plan. However, this was way more than he has ever let Bryce do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was that offensively, for sure, that they were willing to do more. They were willing to take more shots down the field, which we hadn't seen a ton of. And they were willing to do some different types. We didn't just see a bunch of only screens. Right. Thankfully, that was nice. And it was also in a general sense too, right? Of the zero given thing. It was also faking a punt. Right. It didn't get executed perfectly, but it almost got. I mean, they almost got it. And
listen, to take you inside our text conversation when that happened, Lauren said she liked the call, and at first I thought. Yeah. Boy, what a terrible call of who they went to in the formation.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought what a bad person to go to, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who the receiver was that actually caught the ball. Was it Chenault? Yeah. Okay, so it was not about Chenault. It was about his position in that route. But then you go back and you watch the replay and you see Hayden Hurst didn't even bother to block the guy he was supposed to block. And I don't know that would have resulted in the first down, but it would have put Chenault in a better position to make the dive he did on the side.
It's really fortunate that Hayden Hurst is making up for that by being a really productive pass catch. Oh,
sure.
Uh-oh. That's not happening? Sorry.
It's funny. He is the tight end, it seems like, is making the most catches, but he's definitely not the one making the most impactful catches when the tight ends catch the ball. Like when
Well, Ian Thomas is on IR now, so we will no longer see Ian Thomas random sightings at any point. It's Tommy Tremble now still, like, doing stuff. So, okay, cool.
Who last week had a touchdown catch. This week had a nice long catch. The other thing, too, is
Tommy Tremble. It's just like, that's not, you don't expect that after you get Hayden Hurst.
I was about to say, he's not the one you went out on the free agent market and specifically targeted.
Exactly. So, yeah.
The other thing that I noticed this week that, look, there's a reason there was no Sad Sanders run. There was no Miles Sanders, but I do wonder if ChubbaHubbard's just downfield momentum is going to change the hierarchy of running backs on this team.
Demetri, let me just say something to you. If Sanders, I don't know how long Sanders is supposed to be out. I'm not sure exactly.
I don't either.
If he comes back and the split goes back to the way it was before, that might be the thing that breaks me finally.
I can understand why.
Like, and honestly, we had been saying it, hadn't we? It was a limited sample size, admittedly, with Chuba. But at the same time, we were like, okay, well, whenever he's run the ball, he's looked much better.
Mm-hmm. And
yet they continued to do the same thing over and over again with the Miles Sanders falling down for a yard situation. Right. And I'm like, even as a pass catcher, I thought Chuba had been more dynamic in that way. And so I'm sitting here like, hi, can we use him more? Finally, they do, because they have to. And all of a sudden, the run game, we're not talking like huge numbers. We're not talking anything crazy. But again, it's just competence. Competence is the baseline here. And you're seeing closer to it now.
You and I had opposite reactions to that stat they mentioned at the end of the first half, that this is the first time that the Panthers have run as a team for 50 yards in a game since week 1. And like, my reaction was, well, the pass game is not working and they're not doing 3 and out every time. So surely there is some success in the run game. And your reaction was, well, why are you surprised? Of course, that is where we are in the run game. But either way,
it's not like they were gaining many yards, period. That's the other thing. So, like, I get what you're saying. The yards have to come from somewhere. Well, they're not. They're coming from nowhere. That's the problem, right? Like, yeah, they can get like a couple yards here and there, but they're not getting 50, especially when like half their runs were for like 1 or 0, So that's why it didn't really surprise me a ton, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and look, that is totally fair. I think that if
they never get long runs, Miles Sanders, like, I don't recall. I'm sure he has had at least one that went for like
one that I can remember this year, but look, that whatever that run was, and let's say it was like 15 yards, because it was somewhere in that area that I remember.
Yeah, that sounds right.
At some point, all of those 1 and -1, like for
they're more impactful.
Right. The average is never going to come out to like 4 or 5. It's going to be way closer to 1 or 2 because of the overwhelming amount of those short runs.
And that's not what happened yesterday. Like, finally,
no.
Like, I think I mean, he got like one once. He had one run that to me was reminiscent of the SSRs, Sad Sanders runs. But but like the rest of them, for the most part, he's getting like 3 or 4 where Sanders had not been doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if that is about running style, it can't be about size. They're not significantly different in terms of size. It may just be about that downhill style versus
maybe he's more used to the way that like these guys block. I mean, I have no idea, who knows, but all I know is what's been working this year is Chuba and not Miles Sanders.
For sure. I want to remind everybody that the way we find new listeners and keep doing this show is when you spread the word. So wherever you listen, be sure and like and subscribe, and also take time to leave a comment, whether that is on YouTube, your favorite podcasting platform, or I guess call the switchboard at Raycom and let them know you enjoy watching on Origin Sports. I'm not sure what the right way to do that is. And I will remind you that this week on the midweek talk through, Paul Feinbaum is my guest. And the reason Feinbaum is my guest, I will definitely greet him that way. The reason Paul Feinbaum is my guest is what we are going to wrap it up with. Lauren, I don't know. You sent me the text message of Tua and Bryce embracing before the game. And you even, I can't pull up your text easily, but it was something about something to the effect of, I hope your heart is ready for this. And I don't know if you knew that my heart was not ready for it, but it was so great. Yeah, it was so great to see two Alabama quarterbacks facing off in the NFL because look, we live a charmed life as Bama fans, right? Like, but for the team I grew up rooting for, the trade-off of all the winning was, it will be very boring football. And it is not that way anymore. And so I've never, until Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, I had never seen a Bama quarterback as a starter in the NFL, let alone this string of guys. It was a cool thing to see.
Yeah, well, I just hope, I thought your spirits maybe needed picking up after UNC is ahead of Bama in the most recent poll. That must have been hard.
It was. Listen, I feel the way my UNC fan friends
when Bama's above them
when we won the basketball game earlier.
Well, I was going to make a joke about it, but like Bama's been so good in basketball that I was like, no, it's not even a good joke anymore because like they're legit good at basketball.
Well, but see, here's the trade-off, Lauren, is I know that there are Bama fans that are really excited about how good we are at basketball. That is not true. Like it is just a time filler until the next football season. I made this joke to the Joes one time because they could not believe how critical of Nate Oates I was. When Alabama got bounced from the NCAA tournament this year, it was a relief to me. I can stop pretending and wasting my time watching this dumb sport and get back to pining for college football.
I mean, you don't have to anyway,
No, I've got to set an example for the kids, Lauren.
It was it was heartwarming for me. Like I got a little emotional after the game when they hugged. That was the one that really did it for me because Bryce did look like genuinely vulnerable and sad. And it was so nice to hear. And like they talked for a while, like Tua said a lot of stuff to him. And then, they were able to he was able to talk about a little bit about what he told him. And I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah. And so this is where let's move it aside from my feelings for my alma mater and the football team I grew up rooting for and sort of look at this from the standpoint of Tua and Bryce, right? There is a connection because they are both Alabama quarterbacks. I'm sure Nick Saban made a point to Tua to, give Bryce some words of encouragement. But here is a dude that through the first 2 or 3 years of his career looked like it had already been derailed before it got started. So I don't know if Bryce is thinking about that immediately, but as a fan of both of them, it is not lost on me. And
he was doubted. Tua still doubted a lot. Tua still gets a lot of skepticism. So like for me, I thought that was super cool because he obviously had a little different start to his career in terms of adversity. His was a lot injury related. I know. I mean, I'm relieved he's playing football again at all, much less at this high level after that hip injury because it looked awful. But, he also got questioned a lot. Like, is he that good? Is he going to be that guy? And he stuck with it. And people have been patient with him. And he's been patient. And here he is, like, flourishing now. And so I think that was just really cool for him to kind of, take time. And you could tell, the empathy was very genuine. And it was there and the caring. And it's just nice to see. It's nice to see between humans that – you can't find many people that can empathize with your play as a professional high round quarterback. You know what I mean? And it's nice that they had that connection and could share that. I hope Bryce took something really positive away from that too.
Me too. And because he is not under 6 feet, I think Tua is right at 6 feet. There was also some talk about his size, but it was not nearly to the degree that it is.
Why does he look so much bigger then? He looks bigger to me, so much.
Yeah. Because, part of it, the other thing that Bryce is missing when we talk about his size, and this is why Tua looks bigger, it's because Tua's thick. Tua is a wide young man.
I will say, if you're small and thick, you'd be my favorite quarterback of all time because I love that body type in football. Give me a little bowling ball running back. Yes, you're my favorite all day, every day. However, if he had a little more meat on him, in spite of being short, I think people would be a little less. But he does at times look just so fragile back there, and you're
Lauren, call me crazy. Call me crazy. If he had a little more meat on him, we wouldn't have a package for a different quarterback to do the tush push.
Exactly right. No, that's true.
Yeah, so I do watching this game, and you and I texted this back and forth, and I mentioned it earlier. Imagine Bryce with a head coach or an offensive coordinator that was not always concerned about him and wanted to go out there and do cool stuff with him. I do think it is interesting that, like, as much as we saw that video when Mike McDaniels got hired of him calling Tua and telling Tua, "You're my guy, we're going to do this with you." Well, okay, but the Dolphins did go pursue other quarterbacks before last season. So I do wonder, given the adversity, the fact that eventually Mike McDaniels, while he is all in on Tua, he did have to settle for Tua. Does that give you some hope for Bryce that, like, this thing will have a way of working itself out? He's got the tools. It's just a matter of situation. Or am I being too optimistic here?
I think the biggest thing that holds me back from any kind of meaningful hope in that way would just be the fact that I do not ever recall the Panthers having an offensive play caller that did dynamic, interesting things. We've had some good ones, like some solid ones who understood, like, I thought NorvTurner was probably, like, NorvTurner is the best offensive coordinator, I think, that the Panthers have had. Mm-hmm. And just sit with that for a moment and think about what that means.
Right, because you were not getting NorvTurner at, like, San Diego NorvTurner in terms of play calling acumen.
No, but he did have a very good understanding of Cam and how to use Cam. Mm-hmm. I thought Cam was at his best with Norv, and that's really what you want in an offensive coordinator, I think. Like, the dynamic play calling is cool. I mean, it's certainly fun to watch. Like, I even enjoyed it in that game. Like, at least if I watch the Panthers play, I don't have to watch bad football on the other side. That was nice. But at the same time, it's like, what you want is an offensive coordinator that understands what your quarterback can and can't do and calls plays accordingly. And that sounds super simple, but it's really not. It's just not. You look across the NFL, it's not. So,
and it's funny. I heard, I can't remember what NFL talking head I heard talking about this morning before the news even came down about Thomas Brown, is there are only, name a position, a coaching position in the NFL. There are only 32 of those that exist. And it's really hard for guys to not feel like, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down doing it my way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like, it's just tough too, because if you want to implement all these great ideas on offense and they don't work, then you're out the door way faster. So it's risk reward, right? It's why coaches don't take a ton of risks. If they don't take risks and it's not their fault when they lose games because they kick a million sad field goals, then they're going to keep kicking the sad field goals.
Right.
Like, what incentive do they have to change if they're going to get fired for the alternative? That's why we need more Dan Lanning energy in the National Football League.